people who I was dealing with knew who I really was and knew that I didn't have no bad intentions. So people were still trying to help me and to continue to support me.
One of the funnier parts of the documentary is what your mom told you when you were locked up. She said, suck it the fuck up and stop crying, and you're coming home. When your mom told you that, and this is after what the fans had busted, they had pulled out the machine guns on you, right? And so you go through this traumatic experience of being arrested, and your mom's response was, suck it the fuck up. What did you think about that in the moment?
So what happened was I couldn't make a call to my lawyer. So I had a public defender. My public defender brings me in her office and she's telling me, the circumstances that are, I'm basically about to face. And I asked her, can I call my family, because they took my phones, and I knew that, like, if my mom ain't talking to me for a day, she's already lost a son. So if she don't hear from me, police gonna be somewhere around anyway by a certain time. So I knew I needed to call them and talk to them. And the public defender said something like, his residence is Atlanta and he has to decide where he's going. You can't tell us where he's going, basically. So that's what made her explode. Like, basically, like, I don't even know who you is, but if my son is with you right now, he needs to come where I am. I don't care what he said. I don't care what you are saying. And basically, I was, at this moment, I'm crying because my sister is also on the phone. She's talking to me, and my mom was basically just irritated and was just like, listen, you need to stop crying. Miss Public Defender, you need to shut up and send him back home. And that's just what it was at that point, basically. It was no second opinion. There was no second vote. That was the final answer, essentially.
Yeah. You just brought it up a second ago about your brother who had a heart condition and passed when you were young. You guys were both in high school, I believe, right?
He was going to high school. I was going to my senior year.
You were going to senior year.
So he was going to ninth grade.
So with that having happened, this happens with you. Were there any feelings of guilt that you were putting your family through this?
I remember asking when I first got arrested, I remember talking to my grandfather, and I asked him how he found out about it. And he said he was just watching CNN, and then he looked up and there I was. And that made me be like, damn, like, this is, like, it's different when you show people who have to go through it with you. So I remember at one point I just said to them, I don't want you guys to look at me different or judge me differently, basically, because of the stuff that's in the media. And I remember them basically looking at me like, when I said that, like, are you stupid, basically? Like, we know you. Like, we don't care about what somebody else has to say or this situation. Now, when my mom says to me, when she asked me, did I hurt anybody or did I do something that she would deem to be a real problem, she was like, if I would have done something that was like rape somebody, kill somebody, did something really crazy, she would have been like, yo, you got to pay for that. Like, that's what it is. So it wasn't a situation where they weren't holding me accountable and this was like fantasy land here, but it was more so like, listen, in this particular situation, we knew your intention. We know where your heart was. We just got to get through this as a family, basically. Mm-hmm. It wasn't ever, them looking down on me. Did I feel some guilt? Absolutely. I think anybody who says that they didn't or wouldn't is delusional. So I definitely felt it, but they nipped that in the bud pretty quickly.
Did it ever run across your mind about how things might have all turned out if your brother were still here?
Yeah, I think about that all the time. Because he should have been a pro himself as a player. So, I mean, listen, when something that deep happens to you, like my sister-in-law, she just lost her father the other day, and she had hit me about, that and basically advice on how to navigate losing somebody that close to you. And I essentially told her, you're never gonna really get over it. You're just gonna you're gonna learn how to live and get through it, but you're not gonna ever get over it. Like, I think about my brother, something in my life reminds me of him every day. And that happened when I was in high school still, and I'm 27 now. So I don't think I'll ever not think about how stuff would have been. Even my little brother now, he reminds me of Dorian all the time. He looks just like him. He act like him. He move like him. Just stuff like that. You always think about how life would have played out if stuff was different. So that always would be something that's in the back of my head.
Yeah, you said this early in the podcast, and I want to give people an update of what you're doing now, in addition to fighting things on the legal front. But you are now a record label manager, right?
Yeah, I own a label. Yeah,
You
exactly.
own a label, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Chosen Music Group.
Chosen Music, yeah.
Yeah, which is a part of Atlantic.
So we have our label, and then we have a partnership. We have a joint venture with Atlantic, yes.
A joint venture with Atlantic. So how did you transition from being sports, basketball into music?
So essentially, I had read an article about like SoundCloud and like its explosion in hip hop music, like because for still to this day, but when the case first happened, you had all of these young rappers like Lil Uzi Vert, Lil Pump, like all these dudes was blowing up through SoundCloud. And I was like, well, what is this? So I got on there and I got recommended a record, like through this algorithm, and I listened to it and I thought the song was fire. I reached out to the artist. His name was Katil. And essentially, I was like, I want to manage you. I started shopping his demos around to people that I knew. Everybody wanted to sign him. And I was like, you know what? We should, instead of me signing him over to somebody else, I should just do my own label deal. And my partner in my music company is Alex Rifkin, who is the oldest son of Steve Rifkin, who's one of the biggest people ever in music. So Alex's godfather right now is the president of Def Jam. So we had relationships at like the top with the label chairman and stuff like that. What was random was Fred Van Vliet's business manager. Okay, Fred Van Vliet was a guy that I was involved with when I was doing it. I put him with an accountant. That accountant happens to represent a lot of Black executives and entertainment. And as I'm about to make the deal, he calls me and is like, listen, you should go see Atlantic. My client, Daryl Jones, is there, and he just brought Cardi B to Atlantic. So obviously you bring Cardi B and you're gonna have a little bit of juice. So he sets up the meeting with Daryl, ended up setting up a meeting with Craig Cowman, who is the chairman of Atlantic. And first meeting, we talked, and then Craig leaves the office, comes back in, and he's like, Christian, is this a label deal or artist deal? And I was like, I want a label. And he was like, okay, go down the hall, see Julie Greenwald, who was his partner and the co-chairman of Atlantic. We sat with her for a couple hours, and literally they made an offer a couple weeks later. Like it wasn't that deep. And it was funny because that plug kind of came through a basketball relationship or a sporting relationship. So again, it was just, people who I was dealing with knew who I really was and knew that I didn't have no bad intentions. So people were still trying to help me and to continue to support me. So that was just a perfect example of just like the universe working in your favor and God just showing up when you need him. And I mean, that was, of all the stuff that I've done, all the money that I've made, our first advance was more than anything I've ever accumulated in my life. So it was a situation where when it was the lowest point, I mean, when I really didn't have nothing, I went from that to, I mean, I'm doing okay now. So it was a blessing, and it wasn't that calculated. It was just me like, listen, I know that I'm good at this. Like, I don't care what no reports say. I know what I'm doing as it pertains to, management, whether it's an artist or athlete or actor, it's the same thing, basically. You're representing talent. And, I ended up navigating it the right way, and we was in a blessed position, and now we have a label deal. So
has going through all of the things you've gone through, has that changed how you operate as a businessman? Or how much has it changed
I
it?
don't
Yeah.
even, I won't, it's buffers between me and other people. Like, I don't even.
Yeah, you got to be on some no new friendship for real.
Yeah, like if you can't deal with my lawyers and my business people, then clearly we don't need to be talking, because it's a reason why you don't want to deal with people to vet your situation. So I don't even, day-to-day wise, I'm not as involved. And as far as the people just calling me and talking, like, that don't happen as much anymore, unless I really know you, basically. So yeah, I definitely had to change the way I move, and I needed to go through this to get to where I'm gonna go. because I was too loose and I was too eager for stuff to happen, basically, versus realizing like what's for you is what's for you, and you got to just, be patient and it'll come. So I needed to learn certain habits. I needed to see the picture. I needed to see the whole field as opposed to just seeing one pocket. And the case did teach me that. So I'm not, again, God has a way of working in mysterious ways. And the worst thing that ever happened to me is probably the best thing that ever happened to me at the same time, in a very weird, sick way. So, I just try to take every day at a time now, and just not move 1 million miles per hour, and just look at everything more in a strategic basis, and more in a big picture overall of like, what are we actually doing? Like, what are we doing here, and what are we trying to accomplish, versus let's just do stuff for the sake of doing stuff, basically.